Welcome to Meditation Unlimited. My name is Turiya, and our topic tonight is humility. You know, in everything in spiritual teachings and stuff, there's always these opposing ideas like that seem to be conflicts. You know, like the way I've experienced meditation personally, I'm able to go deepest and become most relaxed when I'm absolutely alert and have a tall spine. And usually, you know, it's like, usually we think of relaxation as kind of falling asleep, laying down on the couch and just, but that kind of relaxation is very different than the relaxation that happens, at least for me, in meditation. And so my understanding is that in meditation, I'm trying to raise my level of awareness without becoming too passive or too subconscious. And it's just a different kind of relaxation. And when we're talking about humility, one way that we talk about humility, in yoga tradition especially, is self-forgetfulness. And the idea of just forgetting that all things that limit us, all things that cause us to feel pain and suffering, are rooted in the definition of I, and being overly focused or overly identified with this I that is like me, Turiya, or whatever, the part of me that's me, that I'm feeling, that I'm wanting, that I'm hurting, that I'm needing, or that I'm really good, or that I'm really bad, or I'm really capable, or I'm totally incapable. It's all about that I. But I just sang a chant that says, I am Om, Divine Mother, come to me, okay? And that's why I wanted to try to explain it, but I was like, I'm just going to tie myself into a knot. But there's two ways, there's two approaches, and we can do them both. There's two approaches to dissolving this I. One of them is sort of like the devotional approach that was displayed by many Christian saints, that Jesus or Mother Mary or Heavenly Father are kind of like everything good and everything right. And me, as the humble devotee, I'm a sinner. I'm terrible. Everything I do is wrong in certain versions of Christianity and Catholicism, right? Everything I do is bad. I better not screw up or I'm going to go to hell for eternity. Okay, I don't relate to any of that. I think it's nonsense. But for those people that it works for, and there have been many, they found freedom through this idea that I don't matter, like St. Francis, St. Teresa of Avila. St. Teresa was also a good example. St. Anthony. But there are these souls that actually had a direct experience of the divine in the way they related to it and found, I would say, freedom in it through this kind of this self-identification that was really deprecating and really kind of like almost like soul smashing, that I'm no good and I'm terrible, I'm awful, and I'm like a waste of flesh, and I'm I don't deserve to have good food. I'll take table scraps and that's all I'll have. I don't deserve a good home. I'll take a leaking roof in the woods, and God will provide everything for me. That's one approach, and it works for some people. In my tradition, my teacher Paramahansa Yogananda kind of said that's nice, but that was for back then. There's other ways to do this. And then there's another approach from India. It's not the only approach in India, but one approach in India is to expand the sense of I-ness to include everything, and that's where the I am Om. So Om meaning all of creation, all of the divine is really me. And the way Yogananda used to explain it, he'd say, the ego is like the wave on the sea, and it's a wave on the surface of the sea that believes that it is its own reality, ignorant, and therefore kind of cutting itself off from the power and the potential of the whole ocean by claiming just to be me. I am the little wave. And so you watch the little waves, they blow with life's changes. That wind is like emotions and changing conditions, and sometimes it's turbulent and sometimes it's calm. And these little waves just blow like little victims from one side of the ocean to the other, and then they crash on the beach and die. Yet the ocean never changed. The volume of the ocean never changed. The depth never changed. The whole ocean's the same. Untouched, uninvolved, but completely there and present in the experience of the wave. And so this is how in yoga they explain that's sort of like the individualized spirit that is identified as a separate reality, the ego. And if it would just relax, you know how they say the bigger they are, the harder they fall? The more we're identified with this I-ness, if it's in the wrong way, the more we suffer with ups and downs, like really big wins and then really terrible losses, because it's all about me, because we're like, these waves that are crashing, right? One approach to meditation is to see it as we watch the breath or we concentrate on other things that are happening inwardly as a way to take us away from our identity as something that's unique, separate, and limited, and kind of merge our awareness, reconnect with our ultimate potential as something much greater and much more permanent than a human body and the current personality and thought processes that we experience as our own. So, like I said, that the devotee that thinks they're nothing but a worthless sinner and God does everything is one approach. The other approach that works, it works for some people, it's valid, it's an absolutely valid path. And another approach is to say, I'm not that ego, I am the ocean, and to live it and to live up to it. And it's not easy. And for me personally, I'm kind of do both. I kind of in between both. And so one way to make this humility thing a practice that's practical and real is to say, well, okay, this is the most important thing, I think. This is why I wanted to hit this topic first and give it a little energy, is that each one of us, being that individual wave on the surface of reality, or let's say sort of like on the fringes of consciousness and awareness, we're out there on the periphery, has that whole depth of potential beneath each of us. Yoga means union. The union between all those waves and union between the surface and all of the depth is yoga. So the state of yoga is union with everything, which you could say would be freedom from suffering, freedom from limitation, and all the things that hurt us and hold us back. But the thing is that for some reason, each one of us, to different varying degrees, really identifies with this me, this little wave. But I would suggest that when we meditate tonight, if you want to, you can practice it in a way where you can see the thoughts and you can experience the senses that are identified with me. And just let them be, they're just like little waves, little like leaves flitting around on a tree, and there's a breeze. But don't engage them, don't dance with them, and kind of ask yourself, if you can get to the point where there's a little sense of objectivity and separation from those thoughts and experiences, who is this I that sees the thoughts and knows that they're not really totally me? If you can get there. We live in a culture where people think that I think, therefore I am. That they think that if I am my thoughts, I am my feelings, I am my desires. And I think that's why a lot of us are suffering. And so what I would invite you to do when we meditate tonight is think of it as a practice of not I and thou. If you want to, if you have an I and thou relationship with God, I think that's great, go for it. But if you want to in this meditation, you could just pretend or experiment with the idea that if there is a God, or if there is a higher potential within me that's a little bit beyond my ego and my own thoughts and my beliefs and my own understanding, that by quieting the mind and opening the heart with a sense of wonder and awe and gratitude, or deep faith, a sense of prayer, that we can experience our own highest potential directly. And sometimes, sometimes you don't even know it. You might meditate and think, all I was doing was sitting there watching my breath, and nothing big happened. I don't really know if I meditated. And then maybe afterward, or maybe tomorrow or tonight in bed, or tomorrow in the morning when you wake up, you'll have a different understanding, a different point of view of things. And it might just be because in that meditation you kind of opened yourself. And when I say opened yourself, again, there's different ways to talk about it, but I would say you're not opening yourself to anything other than your own deeper reality. So we're trying to open ourselves to understand our own selves, our own reality, our own truth, our own potential with more clarity, because we're not distracted we're kind of temporarily releasing the belief systems that we've created through our childhood, through what our peers have told us, through all the things that we've experienced, and just say, you know what? Okay, I'm going to put all those beliefs and identifications that I have about myself on the shelf, and I'm just going to go in and see what's there without defining it. That's why I would say this is not a belief-based thing, And then the other thing is that when we talk about humility as being self-forgetfulness, it's forgetting those limitations, which doesn't mean it's not self-deprecating. It's not saying I'm small, I'm nobody, I'm a sinner, I'm useless. It's just saying, I'm going to put those identifications, those limiting ideas, on the shelf. Maybe they work for me, but right now I'm going to put them on the shelf. Try to go as deep as I can into my own consciousness and kind of sink down by relaxing away from the surface and the turbulence of thoughts into the stillness that is always within me. You got to kind of believe that it's there. And just kind of settle down and rest in that for a while. And you may feel, I don't want to set up a big expectation, but at some time you may really feel a very transcendent kind of peace and calmness and security. And then after meditating, living with this recognition of this possibility of there's this greater potential in me than what everybody else told me when I was growing up, or what I even think, what I see in the mirror. The goal is to live without carrying those limitations forward and feeling in our heart intuitively what our own purpose and potential is in this life. And it could be really great. It could be huge. It could be very quiet. It could be really loud, but it's yours. And nobody can define it for you. This is what I love about sharing meditation for people, is that I'm totally enthusiastic about what I feel and what I feel that it's asking me to do with my life. And then the path, the practice is how do I manifest that without getting all tangled up by limiting it with my fears, or getting all puffy about it, like thinking I'm a spiritual badass, right? So it happens, you do something good, then you start feeling proud of yourself for being, oh wow, I have intuition, And pretty soon, you're telling other people how to live. I've done that. I've done that myself and had to live with it. So and that's why Meditation Unlimited, this new version of what I used to do, has come up, because I've really seen that I need to kind of keep myself in check, and I don't want to limit your experience by projecting my own beliefs and experiences into your scene. And that's what I see happening all the time. It's easy to fall into. So that's the idea, that with humility you can accomplish anything. And I'm going to say one more thing, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but we are just up for a wedding with some really close friends, where I was living, Darsh and I were living the last few years, up at Ananda Village. So it's a spiritual community dedicated to meditating, and we all follow the teachings of this lineage. Everyone meditates, and it's a great place, and we have really close friends there. And my teacher directly, Swami Kriyananda, before he passed a few years ago, he founded that village and the work as we know it now, and kind of brought the things that helped me personally. So I feel a very deep appreciation for how he changed my life. And that's why I try to share some of it here. They built, Swami was an interesting guy, because he didn't like to talk about himself, and he had this humility thing down. But he did all kinds of things to help people, wrote a lot of books and did other things. And was always thinking of the welfare of others. That's all he ever focused on. And it was always others everywhere. It was never one specific group. His love was completely limitless. So now they created a mausoleum for him when he died. And it's like this temple, and some of us were like, Swami wouldn't want that. He didn't want to be recognized. I'm always negative and critical, and I was like, what are they going to do now? Make a big marble statue of him, on the hillside. But they actually did it right. I actually helped build it when I was there. Just a little bit. I did a little minor work in there, but this last trip was the first time I was kind of like over all my criticism about it. And I actually was able to sit in there and really meditate with an open mind and an open heart. And I felt so sweet in there. And what was interesting is that there was an event happening where they have these beautiful gardens and tulips, and people come to see the gardens, and they come from all around, and they don't really know anything about these teachings or Swami. They don't know. And in this mausoleum, he's buried under the floor. And the way they decided to make it is it's on the edge of this hillside overlooking this huge valley over one of the forks of the Yuba River, and all you see is pine trees and beautiful hills. It's just, and sky. So when you walk into this little space, it has these 3 giant windows. It kind of feels like you're on the edge of the earth, and all you see is sky and woods. He's under your feet. Now I'm in there with my critical negative I attitude, and I'm meditating in the back, and I'm serious, right? I'm a real meditator. I'm going to go deep. Meanwhile, we have this tourist walking around, and they've got like screaming children with babies and toys, and they're doing texting. And they're like, okay, keep the babies outside, and they come in to check out the mausoleum, and they're walking all over Swami. Okay? And I'm the only one. I'm meditating in the back. I'm doing my techniques, and I'm sitting there for like an hour, and I'm like, this feels weird. Like, they're walking all over him. No one really, they don't even know who he is. They don't even know why they're here. There's like, when you walk in, there's nothing that even tells you what this thing is. And then I got it. I was meditating, and I felt just really connected to him. And I opened my eyes. And there were 2 people who were sitting in the chair. They had these big jackets because it's kind of cold up there in the mountains. They're like this. They're not meditating, in other words. And they're looking out at the scenery. And they got really quiet. Swami's right there under their feet, unnoticed. And I realized that that is exactly what he wanted. He didn't want to be remembered. He didn't want to be recognized. But his whole life was dedicated to introducing people to inner peace. And it's just weird how, there's all these arguments about how the mandir should be designed and how much it should cost and all this, and why does it have to be like this? And I was around a lot of that. And I was so over it when I left the village. And now going back, after being down here for a year or two, and it's like, okay, I got it. It actually all worked out. It was totally perfect. It was exactly the way it was supposed to be. And the people that came in may or may not know how it got there and what it was all about in a certain way, but they left with the essence of what yoga and meditation and all these things are all about, is just having a deeper awareness of our own connection with nature, with God, however we call it. So it's just been really inspiring for me. So anyway, for me, that's the ultimate of humility, is just how his life played out. I know you don't know his past, but the way it all played out and all the different things that happened, and then at the end of the day, it's just this empty room with all this glass, and he's just kind of like there inviting you to see nature and just sit there and just feel it. So, and in our little way, so that this here is like holding a candle to that energy, and that's all we're trying to do. So let's meditate with that in mind. Each one of us has the potential that's infinite, but it will always be unique too. It will always be unique. Each one of us has a very special gift to bring into this greater human experience. And so maybe when we're meditating, maybe in some way we'll take steps toward a greater understanding or clarity to work with that. So, I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to stand up.